Okay, I believe I got the record. So I really want to thank, today we are recording a conversation between an educator and employer who were able to find a need for both students and a local business here in Southwest Wisconsin to fill some employment needs and some employing needs. So we're just going to go ahead and get going with this conversation. I'm going to introduce Skylar Reynolds. He's the educator we're talking in this scenario, and Alicia Erdenberger, who happens to be the business that they saw a need and made a huge connection. So thanks for joining me today, Alicia and Skylar.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess we'll go ahead and start with whoever kind of got this all going. You go ahead and start the story and we'll go from there.
Well, I guess I would just say, like, from the school's perspective, we had like really strong support from our administration to make connections with the community and businesses. So that's kind of where the start of it happened from the school's perspective. And my wife is a nurse at Gunderson Boscoville. So she had came home one day and said that the salad bar wasn't up and running because they didn't have enough staff. So like, that's kind of how the idea right away developed. Like, maybe we could bring some kids in to help set up the salad bar. So then I contacted Wendy Stitzer, who works for Gunderson Boscoville and also is a part of the school system. And she's just like a huge support for all of the students in Boscoville. And she's like, right away, she was on board with it, thought that it was a neat idea that we could have the students come in. And she like instantly connected me with Alicia. And then there were a lot of behind the scene things, especially in the midst of COVID, that we had to work through. But Alicia was awesome. And you know, in the end, we were able to get those kids in, and they did so much more at the nursing home hospital than just set up the salad bar. But that was, you know, and I guess in a nutshell, just an idea that snowballed. And I would say, like, for me personally, like, thinking of ways to get kids out into the community or connected to businesses to get experience for their future, it was like as simple as just asking some questions and connecting with the right people that were thinking the same way. And it just like, it really took off. So just, you know, advocating, and like the most impressive part about all of it, like everyone worked together, but the most impressive part about it was like the kids, like their willingness to work their schedules around at school and like do extra work. It was a lot on them, but they just did a really great job of it. And they were behind it, like nervous maybe in the beginning, but they were just so about making this happen. But that would maybe kind of lead into so many behind the scene things that Alicia did to make it possible for us. So maybe she kind of wants to talk on her perspective of it.
Alicia, before you start though, Skylar, I guess, could you describe the demographic of the students you're talking about? Could you let us into a little bit about their background as to why this was such an awesome partnership?
Yeah. So, well, I think like, so we had 3 high school students, and they had minimal experience with work, and they're students with disabilities. So, you know, looking at like the barriers that they may have, and having them properly trained. But these 3 male students, they jumped right aboard, and those were the kids that we were working with.
Great, thanks. Alicia, you ready?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, go for it.
So, yeah. So from the employer perspective, we of course had a need to in our cafeteria for salad bar. So when I heard that there was interested students in coming to work, I definitely was all for it, and very impressed with their communication with us. They were just very respectful, attended as they should. So that process was just very welcoming to me. And we had them join in through our orientation like we do with our current employees. So they came in as an employee. We paid them, and then we were reimbursed after we submitted through the program for their time. So we paid them as an employee, but yet we got reimbursed for their time. It went very smoothly. We had good communication from Skylar, and then his team was just very, very great. And then I really feel like they all flourished. And one of them came to be one of our employees even after the program. I know for sure one. So yeah, so I just think it was a great thing for everybody in the end.
Okay, Alicia, follow-up question. When you say you were reimbursed by their program, could you go into that a little bit? What program was that? Or Skylar, can you help her answer
I
that?
believe it's CISA 3.
So, yep, and then DVR was the agency that actually, like, they did a lot of behind the scenes things as well, and then that's where the reimbursement came. So like there were like some stipulations we had to work with, but they were great. Like they made it possible as well for the students. So the students were able to receive credit, high school credit through the Youth Apprentice program. So Rhonda Scanlon at Boscoville, there were just so many people that really helped make this happen. And I mean, I think like for me personally, having something like this happen, like it becomes easier, and the students are working there again this year. So it is like, you know, the communication lines are open and the need for students to be there, and then the students need to gain that work experience. But yeah, so we had originally started with a coffee shop in our school. So that was like where their work experience started. But then we started to work with some really great people at DVR, and like there's a lot of job coaching that goes on. So like anyone that would have a student looking to work, DVR is an agency that just can really add so much to job coaching. They work with the students on like career inventories, and they figure out interest areas, and then they find businesses that are open to having students come from school, and especially like at odd hours. They're not full shifts, but having them, it worked out great in their schedule because they could come at lunchtime to help with lunch at the hospital. So again, like something that started as setting up the salad bar turned into the students actually running the cash register, prepping food, serving food. It was so much more than we had even thought or hoped in the beginning. But after they had went through things with Alicia, the staff in the kitchen there just like took the kids under their wings, and yeah, they gained so much more than just, you know, being in there with the experience. Like they were, I think in some ways they were kind of like rock stars at the hospital. Like this, like the times that I would be in there with them, they were so thankful that the salad bar was open and just appreciative of that as well. So that was exciting to see them not just showing up at a job, but like they could see from adults that they were really appreciated.
That's really cool. Alicia, as the employer, So you and Skylar are talking about two separate entities that were co-supporting with this. It sounds like you guys tapped into some services through DVR, which is awesome, but also seeing that this would align with students that have an IEP being involved in a youth apprenticeship program through CISA 3, which is also awesome because a lot of times I think there's a thought process that a youth apprenticeship needs to be students possibly without disabilities and so forth. So that's those two entities working with you folks. That's really, really great to hear that things are being successful and working the way they should. Alicia, I'm a little curious, as the employer in this, when you were first presented this, possibly by Skylar or possibly by Skylar's wife, if you feel comfortable, initial reaction to this thought process?
I had experience in the past with an employer I worked with before that we had a very successful employee that we hired on through a similar program where she had a job coach, and there, in my experience, I had a great one where she was very loyal, very, it's hard to sometimes see the passion of somebody that in the desire to come to work and learn and to, and these three gentlemen were exactly what I was hoping. Is they're very passionate, they want to do a great job, they're loyal, they come to work, and that's exactly the experience I had had with a similar program. So I was very excited. I was like, if it's anything like what I've experienced before, yes, I'm going to try it out, because yes, they just were remarkably good learners, fast learners, and just had that desire to take on more. So they actually asked for more. I mean, we kind of wanted them to do more, but they also were very welcoming to it. That's what was so great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It looks like they, or it sounds like they felt a real connection in the ability to meet probably an expectation that everybody had of them, but then remind everybody, oh no, we can do more.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what yep.
That's awesome. So Alicia, anywhere in this process, and Skylar, listen to this question because I'm coming to you next. Anywhere in this process, was there a barrier or somebody that kind of said, this sounds good in theory, but it's not going to work? Or was there anything you had to overcome, meaning a system or a individual, not naming names or anything, but some type of barrier that you didn't see coming, but you were able to work through?
I don't recall hearing anybody being resistive to it. I don't remember that. It probably helped that I was on board with it and I was very positive. So when I had told them I had a similar positive experience, and our kitchen was struggling with staffing, so I think it was very welcoming. The challenges or the barriers that I did see is some people weren't as patient with that process of them learning. But we just would talk about it as a team and say, you know, we need to recognize, we'll kind of give the feedback to Skylar. Just we're trying and kind of working through that. So when it came to like the cash register, but we just kind of walk through those situations, and we did try to find different things that maybe could help. So a lot of my staff were like, okay, maybe if we tried it this way, so they would help give suggestions. But
Okay.
and then just thinking through, since they're serving during the lunch hour, I think you know, just trying to figure out when they get to take a break. So, but we worked through that because we had one take a break. I believe, and then the other ones worked. So they were getting their time, their lunch break. So those were the two things that I remember.
Okay, well, I have a teenage son at home, so if I know anything, he knows when it's time to eat. So
Yes.
I can understand that being something we had to figure out.
Yep, we had to get that figured out so each of them could have enough time.
Right,
Because once they left our organization, they had to go back to school. So we needed to fit their lunches in that time. So
okay, okay. You said a couple of things I want to come back to, and that was extra supports and getting to and from the school. But Skylar, I promised you, because I prepped you for this, what unforeseen barriers or foreseen barriers did you see? Like was it a hard sell to the parents? Was it a hard sell to your school administrators? What do you see and experience?
Well, I guess I would say, like, first off, the support, the things that made it easy were the support from the district. Lori Genspreen, our special ed director, I mean, she just, when someone is behind you and gives you the green light to give these kids these opportunities, that's like, those are the things that it's like, if there was no like uncertainty, it was like, not if we can make this happen, it was like, we can make this happen. So, and then the acceptance from Basketball Care and Rehab and Gunderson Basketball and all of the people there, they were just on board with it. Like Alicia helping, I'd say, like, for the kids and myself personally, it wasn't like applying for a job where you apply, you interview, you're hired, and you show up. There is a lot to the process. And I think, like, one of the biggest things was, like, for the students did have to fill out applications, and then not only to work there, and then the parents were very supportive. They were like completely on board with it, and that was helpful too. But the DVR process takes some time. So it's, I think, for the students to actually get paid and for them to go through the youth apprentice program and then to balance their schedules at school, it took everybody working together. I don't know that it was a barrier, but it took time. It took time for them to be accepted to DVR. And then, so that kind of stuff took some time. We had to be patient with it. The kids were excited to get there, hoping it would happen. We didn't know, was it going to be something that we could go volunteer for, but everything lined up. And again, they were able to get those credits. They were able to get paid. They were still able to work it out in their school schedule. So again, a lot of really fantastic people working together to make that happen. If there was a business where one side wasn't as open to something, I could see that being somewhat of a barrier. But with the district being so supportive and then the employers being so supportive, it was just a great situation.
Great, that's awesome. Okay, so to go back to a point kind of now both of you have made is a lot of the work that revolves around transition and helping to get those with special needs employed. Sometimes that difficult first barrier is the transportation. Alicia, you said we had to get them back to school and so forth. Skylar, you said, kind of alluded to that whole, let's figure out how to get everybody back and forth and so forth. Can you talk through what that looked like?
So that, like, the transportation, it is a barrier. Luckily for us, the nursing home hospital is less than a mile away. But you have to have a staff member that's able to take them to work, come back, and then go back and pick them up after. So it wasn't a problem of having a vehicle, but it was then aligning other people's schedules to make sure that you were, there, but everybody was there on time, and that you're there to pick them up when they're done so they can get back for class. And they had to come back and they ate lunch every day as a group once they got back to school. I just like thinking through that too. When they came, they had scrubs that the district bought for them. They had badges, but they would come back, they did their own laundry, they would hang their stuff when it came out of the dryer. So there were a lot of other things that were like, they took care of their appearance and their attire for work. So like that was all great too. But then after they were all trained and they had officially started, then they were able to drive themselves because they had their driver's license. So with permission, they were able to drive to and from work. So that was helpful. So for quite a while, they were taken back and forth. So
Okay.
someone would go get them, but that there was no way that from a district perspective that we were going to let that be a barrier. Like we just knew we were going to work that out. Someone was going to take them.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Alicia, anything you want to add to the transportation part of this?
No, I did recognize at the end they were driving themselves and they would carpool. But yeah, I mean, if it would have been a barrier too, I would be open, because we're such a small town. We could have found some kind of arrangement if we would have done one of the routes and then, so
Okay,
yeah.
okay, that's cool. So what were the hours? Like you both keep saying that you had to, the students in the school and everybody kind of had to work around class schedules, but yet fill this need, because certainly lunchtime, there's a set time for them to be there, right? To do their job. So what were the hours like? And I'm assuming it was only Monday through Friday?
Yep. So the students would come to my classroom at about 10:15. They would go to the locker room and change into their work clothes, and they would be at work at 10:30, and then they would return about 1:00 once everything was cleaned up and finished. So once they got back, then they would go and put their stuff in the wash, and then later in the day they would hang it up and do it all over again the next day. But so it was about 10:30 to 1. And then that also was part of, through their lunchtime. So we would have something for them, or the school did a great job of having a lunch for them when they got back. So.
Okay, cool. Okay, back to part 2 of my question. Again, Skylar, you kind of confirm what Alicia had said earlier, and that is as you worked into this, there had to be some supports. What did those look like? Alicia, it sounds like almost some of your employees gave you feedback of some struggles that maybe were occurring, and it sounds like as a team, you all kind of came together. What I love what you said was it almost sounded like a natural conversation, not necessarily a targeted, we've got these employees that need some extra help and it's only them that would benefit from it. But why don't you two both describe to me some of what you had to help with? Like, it sounds like cash register might have been a little bit of an issue for a while, and you were able to overcome that.
So luckily for us, we had been running our coffee shop at the school through our transition program, and we had a cash register that was donated by a business in Boscoville, and so the kids could practice on the cash register. So Alicia would do a great job of communicating, and she would say, hey, can we work a little bit on money skills, or can we talk about presentation, talking with customers, things like that. So we could practice that at our coffee shop. There were some really great people that we worked with in the coffee shop that like knew directly how to work with the kids and ask questions and prep them for situations that might come up while they were at work. So we would practice that stuff, and then Alicia would give us feedback, like evaluate how the kids were doing, like, yes, they've improved here. This is a new area that we need to work on. So I think that communication back and forth, and then we had the place and we had the, I guess the setup within the school that made it really easy to work on those things that would come up at work. I don't know if you're able to put a link in there for this, but we did this, the students did an interview with Jamie Nutter. Jamie from CISA had approached us, very excited about what the kids were doing and wanted to promote that. So we got to go on his show. And so I don't know if there could be a link to that, but that would be something kind of neat to hear from the kids' perspective of like, and that was like, that was right at the end of the school year when we did that. So, gives their perspective of how it all went down.
You bet. We can find that and get that put in the link for us. So when this gets emailed out to everybody, we'll put probably DVR, probably Youth Apprenticeship, CISA 3 contact, and I'll link I believe it's Nutter Minute is when he does those interviews. So we'll link that as well. Thank you for that reference. That'll be really cool to add to this. Alicia, how about you? What about the supports?
So in respect to the employer and my coworkers, we would have department head meetings and discuss what areas the students were needing some more attention. I would meet with the dietary manager frequently to ask her if she was communicating with them, and she would have meetings with them, pull them aside, kind of coach them as she could. Was very happy with their willingness to learn and excitement. So definitely have seen all three of them grow in their role. So our owner, I made him aware of it. He thought it was a great idea. So he was super happy that I had signed us up for that, and was happy that we had our salad bar open again for our staff, because it was more than a salad bar. We actually had our main meal out, and they would distribute the main meal too. So as employees from the hospital and the nursing home came down, they were distributing meals and making sure our salad bar was kept up and cleaned, and they would do dishes and all of that. So yeah, super excited all the way around. Karen Rehab in Boscobel is the organization that runs the kitchen and supports Gunderson Hospital staff with the food. So
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna say something. By no means do I know what it takes to be a employee of a kitchen of any sorts. But I believe there's like a accreditation or certification, something along lines of serve safe or safe serve. Okay, so you're familiar with that. Did the students have to partake in anything like that?
no, regulation states that as long as you have one employee in the kitchen that is serve safe and is there full time, who our dietary manager is, and we had several cooks that were. So no, regulation doesn't say everybody has to. It's an off-site course that we have to go off-site and take a test. So that was not offered to them, but if they would be interested in it, we could pursue it. There is a cost, but
Okay, okay. Skylar, did you kind of require, as you got into this, did you require as the student's educator, them take any sort of certification or any further education on any of this?
Other than like the initial like work trainings that we would have went through with Alicia, like as we prepared to start there, nothing really other than that, other than like, again, not official, but maybe just the natural conversations that you have about how you dress, how you act, situational things. So just your general daily living things, your appearance, how you show up for work, being early, being on time, things like that. So those are kind of like the natural things. And one thing that I like thinking back that I thought was really cool were like the students would come back and they always just seemed like really like energetic and excited when they came back. It helped that they liked the people that they worked with, but they'd be like, we got talked to today about this, and like we would just be sitting in a room, they'd be eating lunch, but they would tell me like if something didn't go well, they were really good at saying like we got talked to about this, but they never felt like they were doing something wrong. They felt like people were supporting them and telling them things, and then as we talked through it again, maybe just gave them like the confidence to like, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to not know everything. It's okay to ask questions and just talk about any scenario. So it was kind of a neat time when we got back. Several of us were able to sit with them and talk to them about their day.
That's cool. It almost sounds like the students did a self-directed debrief after every work shift.
Absolutely.
That's cool. That's cool. So you guys keep referring back to the communication and talking. Was that also kind of a natural, hey, we're just going to talk when we need to, or going into this, did you kind of say, let's establish some sort of timed out plan, pre-plan communication? And then as you got into this, did that increase, decrease, or just stay the same?
I would speak to that. So initially we met more often face to face, and that was part of and then the expectations were all really open, and I think we did a really good job. I understood from their perspective that they coach them, but then they want them to kind of be on their own at some point, and that'll kind of be judgment on the student and the teacher. So it was just very well, I could understand it, and I understood the process, and our connection and communication with the students was always there. It's just sometimes there wasn't a teacher there, but it was the right time, if that makes sense. So they got our input, student input, and then Skylar would always communicate with me, voicemail or phone or email. It was just very easy to communicate from our perspective as the employer. So
I just like, again, yeah, I would say we had a lot of like random emails throughout the whole time, but like the official meeting, like with the students, and then we have some really great paraprofessionals who just like fully supported the kids, and one of our paraprofessionals went in with the students until Alicia thought that they were ready to be there on their own. So was that maybe like a week? I think she was in there with them, and she was there kind of helping, coaching them a little bit, but for the most part was able to just observe and watch the staff do a great job of taking the kids under their wings and then watch them grow. But just, yeah, we had someone there with them for about a week. I went in, I was there for a couple of the trainings and maybe one of their work sessions, but then we had other supports there with them until they were ready. And I think, I don't know
could you please call extension 3723? Thank you.
I don't know if, I think that was like, we had an agreement that we wouldn't set them out on their own until they were ready to do that on, without someone there. And it just kind of naturally worked itself out. They took the initiative and they transitioned quickly into that. I don't think they wanted us around. They were ready to take off.
Yeah, I guess I could touch on too. The three worked really well together. They communicated really well. They had good teamwork. So that helped them to probably not need the paraprofessional anymore because they helped each other. A lot of the students were helping one another. It was great to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Real quickly, what it sounds like to myself, because if we're gonna link to DVR and people are gonna see that DVR can offer a job coach and everything. From myself, it almost sounds like, Skylar, you as a school district were able to take on that job coach role for the students. Does that sound correct?
Yes, yep. And really we had really pushed that connection with DVR in the past, which was helpful. We had parent nights, and so we took a lot of time in our actual transition class. We had the students apply for DVR to make that connection, so that whether it be after high school or whether it be during high school, during the transition class, we had other students. We had a student that was working at the nursery. So we had other students leaving school to go out to their job shadows. But this was unique in the fact that we all worked together, and we were kind of the job coaches, where DVR was there supporting everything. They were supporting the kids. They regularly communicate with them. But yeah, we kind of took that role a little bit to make sure that the students were ready and that they were prepared. And so it worked really well. But I would never hesitate to, if it's a situation where DVR is the person that is helping the student make the connection with the business, they just do a fantastic job. Like those led to permanent jobs for other students in the past as well. So whatever route people would, decide to go, it's just great for kids.
Well, I'll just say my reason for asking is people know, well, when we introduce ourselves for this recording, they'll know that I'm a mom of a child with an IEP and special needs. And I will say one of the open and communications between his DVR counselor and our son and ourselves is that absolutely they want to help, they want to be that strong supportive partner, but sometimes they're limited on being able to find a job coach. So it almost sounds like the three of you, Alicia, you the employer, Skylar, you the educator, and the DVR person, were able to kind of circumvent that, not having a job coach right away, but that's always be known as an option, that it could be there. So it sounds like it was really, really cool opportunity. I guess my next question then is kind of like a wrap-up question for all of us, and that is, if both of you could just take a few minutes and think about your roles as an employer, your roles as an educator, and let's say this video gets shared with educators and employers, because I'm hoping it does, that are new to this, that are possibly thinking about doing something like this, or possibly have never thought about doing something like this and are very hesitant. What, in your perspective, hat you're wearing in this role, what would you say to them? What would you offer to them for resources, for your thoughts, for knowing, going through this. Alicia, it sounds like you've gone through this twice. Skylar, it sounds like you've gone through this, but you're willing to take it on again in whatever capacity you can. What's your thoughts of advice, and what's your honest points? What's your validation of, yeah, this can be scary? Because as a parent of a child that is ready to work, I already know what I'm a little hesitant on and a little scared of, but that's me, that's not him. So I got to check my role at the door and be able to empower him to, nope, you can do this, buddy. Let's go get at this. So whichever one of you wants to jump right on into this, what would you tell your counterpart that is thinking about something like this?
I just right away say, like, my takeaways are, don't be scared to ask. Don't be scared to like show the kids that they can dream big, like special needs or some kind of a barrier, like, is not stopping them from working and being successful. And I just think, like, I was so proud of those kids and watching the confidence grow and how excited they were. And like other kids in the school wanted to do it. Like they were excited. And I know that they will take maybe, and like for me personally, like I didn't want to see anything go wrong or see them fail. So those would be like the insecurities from myself, like that I wanted it to go really well for them. And so, but I would never ever like tell someone that that's a reason to not try and not try to make it work. And like, there's so many people and businesses that are willing to accommodate and to work with you if you're a school district looking to make those connections. Just don't be scared to ask, and don't be scared to empower your students to believe that they can do anything. And like they had all sorts of ideas, like within transition, like, what do you want to be when you graduate? And or what can we do now to prepare you to do that? Like those were the things that we were really, like, as a district, we were working through those things, like as a staff and as a district. Like there's so much more that we can do for the kids so that they're ready to, you know, move on after graduation. And I just think, like, again, that situation worked out really well. And there could be other situations that don't work as well, but it would never stop me from continuing to put the kids in, give them those opportunities or put them in those situations, because they just thrived. They were positive and they weren't letting anything stop them. So whether those were supports at home, supports from work, or just generally people in school were excited for them, and we made it happen. So just don't be scared to make those things happen.
So on the employer end, I would advise everybody to give it a chance. You do need to be patient in the process. But if you look at all the qualities that these students are bringing in, new perspective, they're very engaged. We don't always see that as employers and a lot of applicants. Some applicants these days just hop jobs. There's not a lot of loyalty. So if you, not everyone may end up stay with your organization, but yet you've given them a positive experience, they're going to spread that out. So their positivity of your organization starts with the moment they meet you. And it's just, for me, 2 times in a row, I've seen somebody who came in struggling to now just feeling empowered and definitely loyal to your organization. So it works. You just got to be patient through that process, communicate, and you'll have like a lifelong great experience that you can share, and they will remember you and the organization forever because you taught them and were patient with them. So that's what I'd give to any employer. Give it a chance.
Awesome, awesome. What a great note to be able to wrap up this conversation with is give it a chance, because I'll tell you, I think the latest statistic is 60% of those with some sort of disability, whether it be acquired, meaning through an accident, or born with, meaning a developmental delay. 60% are under or non-employed in the state of Wisconsin. So from an employer standpoint, that's a big pool of possible employees to get into, right?
Yeah.
That have that loyalty. And if we have these awesome educators that are scattered all around our state, then I think we've got some good connections here to have a great blueprint that you two have established here for us to be able and replicate around the state, right?
Yeah.
So awesome, awesome. Well, I really, really want to thank you both for your time. I'm glad that we could finally get together and get this story captured. And yeah, we will go ahead and put links in the chat, and Tim and I will wrap this up. So I'm going to stop our recording now and just say again, thank you to Alicia and Skylar for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.